Welcome back, everybody. So glad you could be with me here today. Walter here at the table saw. So, in a workshop, a production workshop, there's a lot of machinery. And growing up, as I was learning, we were in the transitional period from hand tool woodworking to certain tasks being done by machine to nearly all tasks being done by some sort of machine. Now, would I buy a table saw if I were starting out today as my primary machine? James Krenov had a bandsaw. Paul Sellers has a bandsaw. I believe he has used other machines in his career, but he can do most anything he wants with hand tools, and the bandsaw is to take the grunt work out. So that's sort of how I look at the table saw today, to take the grunt work out. But in the past, we would rip glue line cuts right off of the table saw. Okay? If your one edge is jointed properly, and then you rip this edge, that should be parallel. And if everything is set up square, straight, and true, you can take two saw blade cuts, bring them together, and if they fit tight, you can glue right from that surface. Okay, it's acceptable. Some people say it's even preferred because of the slightly jagged surface that the saw blade leaves. But then again, if you're doing a lot of ripping, you're going to put a rip blade in, which has the faces ground in such a way that they act like a planer. So, getting back to the question, would I buy a table saw today if I were just starting out? And I probably would not. They're big. This one's like 300 pounds. It's an old Delta Unisaw from the 1940s. The motor alone weighs 65 pounds. Ask me how I know. Yes, it's been out and cleaned and serviced a couple of times. It's only a 1 horsepower motor, but it is big. That's the way they built them back then. If I'm going to do hand tool woodworking, I would probably buy a quality bandsaw. And with a number of different blades, you can do different things. You can even cut dovetails on the bandsaw. They're accurate, they're repeatable. If I had to make 100 dovetail boxes, I'm not cutting them by hand. Oh, no way. I will set up the bandsaw and make the cuts on the bandsaw precisely, each and every one of them, and then just remove the waste. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. I think if I were a young person today, I'd buy myself a bandsaw for the shop. But if my primary focus is cabinetry, in other words, kitchen cabinets, I wouldn't buy any machinery, none whatsoever. I'd buy a quality track saw, get myself a portable table, Whether it has all the dog holes in it or not, like the multi-function tables or not, that's totally up to you. But with a good work table set up with squares and fences, you can take full-size sheets of plywood, cut them accurately for cabinetry. And you could technically build a kitchen cabinet on site. So you wouldn't have to transport a finished cabinet. It'd be built on site. And I know some people who do that. So if I were doing home remodeling, lots of rip cuts, lots of cross cuts in sheet goods, I'd buy a track saw and make sure I have the proper blades for it, for both rip and cross cut, hardwoods, softwoods, plywoods, particle board, laminate, etc. But our dream machine was always the table saw. And it was only later that I got the bandsaw. And the only reason I got the bandsaw because I liked wood turning. And wood turning requires you to bandsaw some stuff sometimes. I'm a rebel. I do things a little different sometimes. But now, a disclaimer. As you can see, there is no blade guard. All right? There is a mount for it down here. And I have it over there, but I don't use it. The original blade guard was heavy. It was metal. And visually, I can't see the cut. And physically, it kept your hand so far away that certain cuts became difficult, even with push sticks and other devices to hold the wood. So I have learned that the cover plate, the cover plate should be painted red, and they didn't ask me when they designed these things. I wish they would ask me. I could tell them, don't do that. The cover plate should be 2 inches, at least 2 inches from one side of the blade, okay? Preferably your rip side. It should be anodized red or be made and painted red or made out of phenolic resin and be red or orange or yellow. That way, you have an automatic warning. So if it were 2 inches wide, it would be right at, okay, that's 2 inches from the blade to the fence. That would be my automatic warning. Do not put your hand down in there, okay? Do not, take a piece of wood and put your hand down in here. It's just too close. You have to make push sticks or other work holding devices in order to do that work safely. The other thing about table saws that I don't like is it travels at a high rate of speed. 10-inch blade going at 1725 RPM. You have to do the math to find out what the feet per minute those teeth are coming around at you. They can fling things. Trust me, I know. I've had maybe 1 or 2 kickbacks in my life, but then I've learned, no, you stand a little to the side and you do your work. And if something's going to fling, it's going to fling that way. That's one of the things I really don't like about table saws. You don't have that problem on a bandsaw. On a bandsaw, you have other problems like how to support the work. All right, if you've got a big piece of work, how do you support it on a bandsaw? That's where the track saw comes in. The track saw is probably the safest way to break down, and when we use the term break down, sheet goods. It's the term used to get it into smaller pieces so that you can then either come to the table saw or perform other joinery or whatever you need to do. So that's what I would do if I were a young man. I'd start my cabinet making life using a track saw and a good quality portable table. Then I would consider, okay, if I have to make the same piece over and over and over, that's when I would consider a table saw. And what kind of table saw? Well, budget. As of right now, if I had to choose a table saw, like right this instant, I'd choose the saw stop. But I would take the electronics out of it. All right? I don't want the saw stop. What I want is a good quality cabinet saw. Now, maybe there are other ones out there. Maybe there's some made in China that are really, really good. I don't know. I haven't been shopping for it because I have my good old girl here. She's been with me a long time, and we used to joke around that it's going in the grave with me, but they won't let me put this in where I'm going. So, oh well. It'll have to be passed on to somebody. But that's about it for this one. Let me know your thoughts. What would be your first power tool buy if you were setting out as a young person into the world of cabinet making and remodeling? So bookcases, kitchen cabinets, staircases, things like that. Not talking about setting up a furniture factory. I'm talking about setting up a business making cabinets, bookcases, etc. And then we don't even really want to talk about things like the screaming demons, routers. I've used my number of routers in my day, and they do perform a lot of nice tasks. But here again, if I have to make the same cut on 100 different pieces, there's a good chance that a router or a shaper will do that task better. A nice router table actually replaces a shaper. You can do so much more with that. A drill press, you can get away without a drill press. But yeah, to start, what would you do? I hope you found something useful, helpful, maybe entertaining. But head out to your shop. Go make some sawdust. That's another video I should do. Why do they call it sawdust? Walter out.